What if everything you knew about England's royal ancestry was built on a carefully concealed secret? Picture this: the entire British monarchy, from Queen Elizabeth II to King Charles III to Prince William, all descending from a medieval queen whose official records documented her as having brown skin. A ruler so formidable she commanded England's defenses while her king fought overseas. A mother whose eldest son earned a mysterious title that echoes through history, the Black Prince. Yet for 7 centuries, her authentic story has been systematically obscured, her image literally whitewashed. This is the untold saga of Queen Philippa of Hainault, and the historical cover-up that continues today. Was she of African descent? And if this is true, why has such powerful evidence been buried for so long? The year 1328. England stands at a crossroads of turmoil and transformation. The former monarch, Edward II, has met a gruesome end at Berkeley Castle. Murdered, most believe, at the arrangement of his own queen, Isabella of France. Having orchestrated a rebellion, escaped to continental Europe with her young heir, and marshalled an invasion force to depose her husband, Isabella had rewritten the rules of medieval power. Now her adolescent son occupies the throne as Edward III, merely 16 years of age, attempting to unify a deeply divided realm. Yet he doesn't face this challenge in isolation. At his side stands his newly wedded queen, a 14-year-old noblewoman from Hainault, a region in modern-day Belgium. Her name Philippa. She would become one of the most transformative rulers England ever witnessed. But who truly was this Philippa? To grasp her significance, we must first comprehend the world from which she emerged. Medieval Europe bore little resemblance to the homogeneous white landscape portrayed in modern cinema and traditional textbooks. This epoch saw the Moorish Empire commanding extensive domains throughout Spain, Portugal, and sections of France. The Moors weren't merely military occupiers. They represented the intellectual vanguard of their civilization. During what Europeans labeled the Dark Ages, Moorish academics were revolutionizing mathematics, medical science, celestial studies, and architectural design. Their cultural footprint extended far beyond Iberia. Moorish aristocrats forged marital bonds with European dynasties. Commercial pathways transported not merely merchandise, but populations and traditions across the Mediterranean into Europe's core. The ancestral lines of European nobility contained far greater diversity than conventional narratives acknowledge. Philippa's father, William I, Count of Hainault, commanded wealth and authority across territories spanning present-day Belgium, the Netherlands, and northern France. Her mother, Joan of Valois, descended from French royalty as the granddaughter of King Philip. Superficially, this appears as standard European noble matrimony. Yet the historical documentation reveals something extraordinary about Philippa's physical characteristics. These descriptions have ignited a controversy spanning generations. In 1326, when Philippa reached just 9 years old, England's King Edward II dispatched Bishop Stapleton of Exeter, one of his most dependable counselors, to assess her suitability as a prospective bride for his son. Romance played no role here. This was strategic calculation. Royal unions functioned as political instruments, and the king required comprehensive intelligence on his potential acquisition. Bishop Stapleton's evaluation remains preserved in historical archives, and its specificity is remarkable. He chronicled the young girl with forensic precision. Her hair, he documented, existed betwixt blue, black, and brown. Her eyes appeared blackish-brown and deep. Her nose he described as fairly smooth and even, save that it is somewhat broad at the tip and flattened, noting her broad nostrils and full lips, especially the lower. Then he recorded words that reverberate through history. Moreover, she is brown of skin all over, and much like her father. Some might dismiss brown of skin as merely indicating a sun-kissed complexion or slightly darker pigmentation compared to other European women. However, Bishop Stapleton wasn't composing verse or making casual observations. He was filing an official diplomatic report to a monarch who demanded precise information about his future daughter-in-law. This constituted a legal document, a royal assessment conducted under oath. He explicitly stated she was brown all over, not confined to sun-exposed areas. Furthermore, he noted her resemblance to her father, William I, who evidently shared this brown complexion. These weren't incidental remarks. They were documented realities, recorded for posterity. The marriage proceeded in January 1328. 15-year-old Philippa wed 16-year-old King Edward III at York Minster. Unlike numerous foreign-born queens who remained alienated in England, despised for importing their foreign entourages and alien customs, Philippa distinguished herself immediately. She mastered English. She adopted English traditions. She captured English hearts with astonishing rapidity. Within mere years, chroniclers celebrated her as the most gentle queen, most liberal and most courteous that ever was queen in her days. But her genuine legacy emerged through her actions. Philippa refused to confine herself to castle chambers doing embroidery. She revolutionized England's economic foundation. Drawing upon Hainault's renowned textile expertise, she grasped the economic potential of manufacturing. She persuaded Edward to welcome Flemish weavers to England, establishing a textile production settlement in Norwich. Within years, English cloth became the kingdom's primary wealth generator. Her innovations continued. Philippa pioneered England's coal mining operations, creating entirely novel revenue sources. She transformed a medieval agricultural society and began steering it toward commercial dominance. All while bearing 12 children, guaranteeing the royal succession through 7 sons who reached maturity. Perhaps her most legendary moment arrived in 1346. Edward III campaigned in France, prosecuting what history remembers as the 100 Years' War. He appointed Philippa as regent, granting her absolute authority to govern England during his absence. Then Scotland struck. King David II of Scotland, observing England's monarch occupied on the continent, crossed the frontier with a formidable army. A lesser individual might have capitulated, negotiated peace terms, or awaited Edward's return. Philippa chose none of these paths. She personally assembled an English military force, mounted her war horse, and rode forth to confront the Scottish invasion. Before the Battle of Neville's Cross, she delivered an oration to the troops that inspired them to triumph. The English achieved decisive victory. King David I was seized and imprisoned. Philippa had demonstrated she wasn't merely a queen through matrimony. She was a sovereign in her own capacity, a military commander capable of leading forces and securing victories. Another episode illuminates Philippa's character profoundly. In 1347, following Edward III's successful siege of the French city of Calais, he burned with rage. The siege had consumed nearly a year and depleted his resources catastrophically. He declared his intention to execute 6 of the city's prominent citizens as a warning to others who dared resist him. The 6 condemned men appeared before the king with nooses encircling their necks, prepared for execution. But Philippa, 9 months pregnant at that moment, prostrated herself before her husband. She implored him to spare the men's lives for their unborn child's sake. Edward, who cherished his wife deeply, couldn't deny her plea. The men survived. This scene, immortalized throughout art and literature as the Burghers of Calais, revealed Philippa's compassion and moral power. Even a warrior king consumed by vengeance yielded to her clemency. So why does any of this connect to questions about Philippa's racial identity? Because something peculiar occurred to Philippa's historical record across the centuries. Despite ranking among England's most consequential queens, despite revolutionizing the economy and governing as regent, despite her battlefield victories and demonstrations of mercy, something fundamental about her identity was methodically erased. Not a single portrait of Philippa created during her lifetime exists today. Every representation we possess was produced posthumously, and each depicts her as a pale, delicate, stereotypically European-featured woman. Her tomb effigy at Westminster Abbey, sculpted shortly following her death, has undergone alterations and restorations repeatedly throughout the centuries. Each restoration appears to have rendered her features increasingly European, less distinctive, lighter in tone. The detailed chronicles of her appearance existing in medieval manuscripts were modified in subsequent copies. Descriptors like brown and dark vanished or were altered. By the Victorian epoch, when the British Empire reached its zenith and racial theories promoting white supremacy were employed to legitimize colonialism, Philippa had been completely whitewashed from historical memory. Then there's her eldest son, Edward, Prince of Wales, who commanded English armies to French victories and became one of medieval England's most celebrated military champions. History remembers him by a single designation, the Black Prince. The conventional explanation attributes this nickname to his black armor. Yet numerous knights wore black armor. It was scarcely distinctive. Why did Edward alone receive this appellation? Some contemporary chronicles suggest the name referenced his physical appearance, that he inherited his mother's darker coloring. The nickname adhered so tenaciously that even today, 6 centuries later, everyone recognizes him as the Black Prince. That's not the variety of nickname acquired merely from armor preferences. That's a designation describing something fundamental about identity. In 2003, the organization behind the 100 Great Black Britons project included Queen Philippa on their roster, positioning her at number 5. The backlash erupted immediately and ferociously. British historians mobilized to condemn the decision. There's no evidence, they proclaimed. This is absurd. But what they actually meant was their refusal to acknowledge the evidence that existed. Bishop Stapleton's report disregarded or rationalized away the Black Prince's nickname. Just armor, they insisted. The genealogical links to Moorish nobility through Spanish and Portuguese royal lineages, dismissed as too remote to signify anything. The question isn't whether evidence exists. Evidence does exist. The question becomes why so many historians desperately deny it. Because if Philippa possessed Moorish ancestry, if she was black or mixed heritage, then everything transforms. Every English monarch since 1328 descends from her. That's not hyperbole. Every single one. The entire Tudor dynasty, Henry II and Elizabeth I, descended from Philippa. The Stuart kings, the Hanoverian monarchs, Queen Victoria, Edward Phibba, George V and VI, Elizabeth Seppa, and now King Charles III, Prince William and his children. The complete British royal family traces its bloodline directly to Queen Philippa of Hainault. If she carried African ancestry, then so does every member of the British royal family presently. That's not a trivial historical detail. That's a fundamental challenge to centuries of meticulously constructed mythology about pure European bloodlines and white racial supremacy. The DNA question looms over this entire controversy. Philippa's remains rest in Westminster Abbey within her magnificent tomb. Modern DNA analysis could potentially trace her ancestry with precision, could prove or disprove Moorish heritage definitively. The technology exists. Scientists have successfully extracted and analyzed DNA from medieval remains previously. It's not even particularly complicated by contemporary standards. So why hasn't it been executed? The royal family and the Church of England, which administers Westminster Abbey, have rejected all petitions for DNA testing on royal remains. They claim concerns about respect and sanctity. But one must wonder, if the answer were obviously that Philippa was purely European with zero African ancestry, wouldn't that terminate the controversy instantly? Wouldn't it vindicate their position and silence the skeptics? The fact that they refuse to permit testing suggests they lack confidence about what the results would reveal. Science could resolve this debate immediately, yet they won't allow it. Ask yourself why. The reality is Philippa's story forms part of a vastly larger pattern of historical erasure. Medieval Europe was far more diverse than we've been taught to accept. Moors, Africans, Arabs, and people of mixed heritage inhabited all throughout Europe. They weren't exclusively slaves or servants. They were nobles, scholars, merchants, artists, and yes, queens and kings. But commencing in the colonial era, particularly during the Victorian Age, when European empires were justifying their global dominance through theories of racial superiority, this diversity became inconvenient. History was rewritten. Portraits were painted over. Manuscripts were edited. The medieval world was reimagined as exclusively white, a pure European civilization that never actually existed. This fabricated history is what we inherited. It's what we observe in movies and television programs where every medieval European is white. It's what appears in our textbooks. It's the deception we've been taught so comprehensively that questioning it feels revolutionary. Queen Philippa died on August 15, 1369, at the age of 55. She had suffered from dropsy, what we now recognize as edema, a swelling condition that caused her tremendous pain in her final years. King Edward Philippa was devastated by her death. He never truly recovered. The man who had been one of England's greatest warrior kings seemed to lose his vitality when Philippa died. He commissioned a beautiful sculpture for her tomb at Westminster Abbey, where she lies to this day. He ensured she would be remembered, honored, celebrated. What he couldn't prevent was how subsequent generations would erase crucial aspects of who she was. Oxford University's Queen's College was founded in Philippa's honor by her chaplain, Robert D. Egglesfield. It stands as a testament to her legacy, though few people today know the complete story of the woman it's named after. The textile industry she brought to England continued to expand, eventually becoming one of the pillars of British economic power during the Industrial Revolution. The coal mining she initiated helped fuel that revolution. Her descendants ruled England for centuries and eventually constructed the largest empire the world has ever witnessed. Every accomplishment, every victory, every moment of British history from 1328 onward flows from the woman who was described as brown of skin all over. So, was Queen Philippa black? The honest answer is we don't know with absolute certainty, and we may never know unless DNA testing is permitted. What we do know is this: a trusted bishop described her as brown-skinned with features that don't match typical European descriptions. Her genealogy includes multiple possible connections to Moorish nobility through intermarriage in Spanish and Portuguese royal houses. Her son was called the Black Prince, a nickname that persisted for centuries. And perhaps most tellingly, powerful institutions have spent hundreds of years ensuring this question couldn't be properly investigated. Editing records, refusing scientific analysis, and attacking anyone who dares to ask. The evidence exists. The questions remain. Bishop Stapleton's report survives in archives. The genealogical connections are documented. The systematic whitewashing of her image and story is undeniable. You have access to the same information historians do. Look at the evidence. Consider why it's been so thoroughly suppressed. Decide for yourself what you believe. What's certain is that Philippa was an extraordinary woman. She was intelligent, compassionate, brave, and capable. She transformed England's economy, ruled as regent, led armies, showed mercy to defeated enemies, and raised a family that would shape European history for generations. She was loved by her people, respected by her enemies, and mourned deeply when she died. These facts aren't in dispute. They can't be erased no matter how much anyone tries. Philippa's greatness transcends questions of her racial identity. Yet those questions matter, precisely because someone has worked so hard to ensure they're never answered. History is written by the powerful, but the truth has a way of surviving. It survives in official reports filed by bishops who had no reason to lie. It survives in nicknames that stick for centuries. It survives in the genealogical records that map bloodlines across continents. It survives in the portraits that were painted over, but not destroyed. It survives in the questions that authorities refused to answer, and the tests they refused to allow. 700 years of erasure couldn't completely eliminate the evidence. That something about Queen Philippa's identity made future generations deeply uncomfortable. So the next time someone tells you medieval Europe was only white, remember Queen Philippa. Remember the queen who ruled England, who won battles, who changed history, and who may have been black. Remember how hard they worked to erase her. Remember that the history they don't want you to know is often the history that matters most. Because whether Philippa was black or not, the controversy itself reveals something crucial. That history as we've been taught it is incomplete at best and deliberately falsified at worst. The truth doesn't need protection, only lies do. And after 700 years, Philippa's story still refuses to be silenced. That alone tells you how important it is.